Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to go ahead and work on getting started here. I'm trying to put this on the belt, and I was trying to put it on the belt loop. We made it to, which verse did we make it to? Galatians chapter 5 and verse 20. So we're going to pick up there. We're looking at the works of the flesh. So as we stroll through those, we're looking at some very important points and how to avoid said things and what exactly we are supposed to do as Christians. So the word that we got to last week was to variance, right after hatred. We took a look at hatred and how love is required of a Christian, not hatred, coming from Matthew chapter 22 and verses 37 through 39. And then also from 1 John chapter 3 and verse 15 through 17. Now we're going to take a look at variance, which is a little bit different than hatred, but it's a little bit of the same. It's hatred out in the open. It's a type of quarreling or wrangling, that is the word that was listed there, if you will, causing contention or debates. Proverbs chapter 6 and verses 16 through 19 is an example for us, if we'll jump over there. Proverbs chapter 6 and verses 16 through 19. Whoever's there, if they beat me there, they can go ahead and read that.
There are 6 things that the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren.
One who sows up discord among the brethren. That's the word or the type of thing that we are looking at there. And then Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 12, if you will. Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 12.
Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sins.
And then also Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 18, where it says, A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger pleaseth strife, or appeaseth strife. It not pleaseth, appeaseth. It satisfies it. It's the type of thing that we're talking about here, and we see the same type of word or the same type of thing in Romans chapter 1 when we're talking about the debate in verse 29 when we're talking about debate. It's fighting just to fight. When we pick fights, when we're doing it because of hatred or out of hatred, we're fighting just to fight. That's not something that we can do. It's not something that we need to do as Christians. Now, this could arise from various places or various sources, one of which could be a proud heart. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 25, if you will, read that verse. That's where we get that point from. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 25.
A greedy man stirs up strife, but the one who trusts in the Lord will be enriched.
What about Luke 22 and verse 24, where there was a desire to be the greatest? They were asking, who's going to be the greatest? Well, that can stir up some strife there as well. An internal need to show that you are better than others. That's what's kind of going on at that point. Moving on from the variance or the strife as it's translated in the American Standard, we have immolation, which the American Standard also says jealousies. I think that's a little bit easier to understand with that. And it is the word from which we get the word zeal. Zealous, or the words that go with that, zealous. Zeal is good until it's corrupt. Because we can have a zeal to do the things for the Lord. But when our zeal has false motives, or whenever it's personal motives, it's corrupt. We're seeking our own gain rather than the gain of the Lord. We're one who is zealous for their own gain. They put their focus on themselves. That's a bad type of a zealot. One who is zealous after the things of the Lord is what we should be. Doing all the things that are bringing glory to God, not to self. Excuse me. Seeking to praise and uplift God rather than self. We are told to humble ourselves, right? James chapter 4 and verse 10. Matthew chapter 23 and verses 8 through 12. Matthew chapter 23, we have the woes to the Pharisees, which Jesus is telling them, you don't call yourselves masters. You don't call yourself Father, because there's only one Father. And when it comes down to it, he also says that whoever exalts himself shall be abased, and whoever humble himself shall be exalted. That what we as Christians are supposed to do is to exalt God, not ourselves. Show that in our lives. There was there's many examples. There's one example that comes to my mind right now, and that is in 3 John chapter. Not 3 John chapter. There's only one chapter in 3 John. 3 John and verse 9. Eventually I'm going to stop doing that. Probably not, though. 3 John and verse 9. Who do we have here? I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds, and which he goeth prating against us with malicious words, and not content therewith. Neither doth he himself receive the brethren, but forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. What does the word preeminence mean? Do you know?
Above all else?
Above all else. First. Takes first place, if you will. Who has the preeminence? Christ. God. He has the preeminence. We don't have the right to say or to do the things that Diotrephes was doing right here. He was prating against them with malicious words. But he wasn't content with just doing that. He wasn't content with just berating them. He had to go further. He wouldn't receive the brethren, but he would forbid the brethren in the congregation that he was in. Well, in his mind, it was his congregation, but he would forbid those in the church there that would accept the brethren. And he would cast them out of the church. I have another question. Can we cast people out of the church? Do we have that right? No. Who adds to the church? God. God adds to the church. Acts chapter 2 and verse 47. We can't do that. It's just as simple as that. We cannot do that. We have to humble ourselves, remember our place, and and stay in our place. That's what we have to do. So, emulation or jealousies, the bad type of zeal. Yes.
He says, of course, the Lord adds into the church.
Mhm.
But what about when a church practices church discipline and basically casts somebody out of the church because of their sin?
That's a good question.
How we reconcile those two? I mean, you said that we don't.
We,
But if
we
we-
don't in the fact or in the way that he is doing it. He's just rejecting them because he wants to keep his power, if you will. When we're talking about church discipline, if it's someone who's living in sin that church discipline is needed, they've basically walked out of the church. I mean, that's the way that I'm seeing it. That's a good question. That's a very good question.
If we put that in proper context,
Yes.
what we're talking about is not the church. We're talking about a local congregation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about a group of elders determining that somebody is out of line
Mm-hmm.
and putting them out. We're talking about one man who takes it upon himself to push somebody out of the congregation.
Right. In this context,
In
yes.
this context, yeah. So we're really talking about two different things.
Right.
This was a local congregational incident of one man, and he was being corrected for being wrong. So I think it goes back to, yeah, he was jealous and putting himself in first place, and
Yeah.
that's wrong.
It is. It's absolutely wrong. I will get that. That's a good study topic for me this week. So I will work on that, and I'll bring you an answer. Hopefully, I'll bring you an answer. But that's the type of thing that we're talking about here: jealousies, or a type of zealousness that is. I forgot my thought.
Sorry about that.
You're okay. You're okay. As soon as I saw the hand, it was zealousness that is seeking to bring glory to self rather than to God. Yes.
What was Brad's question? I didn't.
It was. So we're talking about the fact of having the preeminent. Well, not the preeminence, but how Diotrephes, he was basically kicking people out of the church. He was casting them out of the church, those that would receive the brethren, and basically who was treating the brethren as they should. His question was, what about church discipline? Because in a way, that's almost what we're doing, is casting them out of the church. So,
You like pertaining to today's time?
Yeah.
From what he did?
right. Yeah. So that's the question, and I will.
But one thing that was happening here is he was assuming that it was his church.
Mhm.
And people today always, when you visit with people out on the street and everything, they always say something about our church
Mhm.
or my church.
Right.
They're doing the same thing that Diotrephes was doing.
Right.
They're claiming that it's their church. No, it's not. It's the Lord's church.
Right. And
That's a big difference.
it is.
And people use that term, our church or my church, in a way that it's not.
Very flippant.
They're assuming some things that are not true.
Right. And in some cases, most of them, well, I say most of them, in the Lord's church, when it is done, I don't think it's meant to do that. I don't think they mean to be like, well, my church, we're over here doing this. Well, it's still the Lord's church, but we get what you're talking about. But yeah, very flippant with the way of my church is used. So, going on from the immolation or the jealousies, now we are on to the wrath, which wrath, yes.
Where you leave
We're going back? Okay, we're going back.
Is there a good jealousy?
You asked
I
me
mean,
that. You asked me that last week.
I mean, throughout the Old Testament,
Yes,
we read that God is a jealous God.
God is a jealous God.
But we never read that in the New Testament. But in the Old Testament, we find it's a jealous God. So, are there good jealousy? Can you have a good jealousy?
Yes, there is a good jealousy. I've not fully studied that yet. But I do remember the verse in James chapter 1 where it says that, oh man. Well, now I don't remember the verse. I remember the verse, I just don't remember the verse. It's in James chapter 1. I know exactly where it is. Yeah, Miss Julie will tell me. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and coming down with the Father of lights, within whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. With the preceding verses of that, talking about that God is not going, and paraphrase, God doesn't tempt us. He wouldn't, let's ask this. Would, thinking back to 1 Corinthians, with the thought of conscience, for some Christians, they see certain things as being a sin that aren't exactly a sin, but more of conscience sort of thing. The brethren, if they know of that fact, they are supposed to, I'm jumping down a rabbit hole. They're supposed to avoid that certain thing to keep that, as the scripture called it, the weaker brother from either sinning or thinking that one is sinning. Why would God say that that all jealousy is wrong when in the Old Testament he says that he's a jealous God? Wouldn't that be causing some to stumble? Or should he stay away from it? I'm confusing myself. I'll come back to you with that one again. Yes.
I think in context, when he's talking about, I am the Lord your God, I am a jealous God.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, my view on that particular scripture reference would be not to put anyone above
Of course.
him. He's jealous in that context.
Right.
So if we put anything above God, it's sin.
Right.
He's a jealous God who will punish that sin.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
My thought,
Mm-hmm.
1 Corinthians 1:11,
Yeah.
Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Right.
Couldn't we be a little bit jealous of a man that's really faithful, really working for the Lord? And said, I'd like to be like that guy.
Like the little bit of the zealous side.
Yeah, being zealous. So that
Absolutely.
would actually be a good jealousy.
Right. Which is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Okay, now I see where you were going with it. Thanks a lot. Because we're talking about the jealousies from where we get the word zeal. There is a good type of zeal, but there's also a bad type of zeal. There's a good type of jealousy, bad type of jealousy. Mixes in together. You're right. You're right. Thank you, Brad. Thank you for confusing and then clearing me up. I really appreciate
You
that.
did just fine.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
good. You're fine.
Now we're on to wrath. Are we on to wrath now? Uncontrolled anger. Let's
Are you mad at me?
No, I'm not mad at you. Because I have to listen to the verses that we're actually about to read, which is over in Romans. So let's jump over to Romans. Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, and we're looking at verses 9 through 21. And I think I had Pat read this once before, so I'm going to go ahead and jump through this. I'm going to try. I have a lot of words written in this section. Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another, with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another. Rejoicing in hope. Patient in tribulation. Nope, I skipped a verse. Be not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer, distributing the necessity of the saints, given to hospitality. Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. I have a question. With things that we're mentioning so far, does this sound like someone that is full of wrath? No. Does this sound like someone that is supposed to be full of wrath? No. No. Okay, let's continue on. Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that rejoice, and weep with them who weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not the high things, but condescend to men of lower estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Does this sound like someone who has uncontrolled anger? No. It's not how we're supposed to act. It's not how we're supposed to be. But what we are supposed to do is, to the best of our ability, live peaceably with all men. And then he tells us who can have and does have wrath. This is who has wrath. He says, dearly beloved, avenge not yourself, but rather give place unto wrath. So instead of us having the wrath, give place unto it. Step aside. That's the word I was looking for. Step aside for it. We're not supposed to have the wrath. That's not our place. Whose place is it? God's. I like that. Yeah, that's God's place. It says, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. The wrath, referring to the divine wrath, give place, is to give room for it to work. Do not get in its way, as you will do by taking vengeance into your own hands. We're not the ones that are supposed to have wrath. We're not the ones that are supposed to do anything with that. We're supposed to step aside and basically let God take care of it. That's what we're supposed to do. God's place is the wrath, not ours. It says, therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in doing so thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head. Do not overcome evil do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. What we are supposed to do is good. We're not supposed to do the evil things and give in to wrath or to hate. What we're supposed to do is give peace or bring peace to the table. As Christians, we should be temperate. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 26 tells us that we need to be temperate, having controlled anger. anger or being angry, it's not a sin. The verse says, be ye angry and sin not. We can be angry. We can be upset. But when we get to the controlled anger side of things, or the uncontrolled anger, excuse me, that's where we really step across the line where we're not supposed to be. Uncontrolled anger is where we cross that line. It drives us to do things that we would not normally do. And we need to stay away from it. Strife. This one is a word that is meaning contentious. Well, one who is causing, like I was saying last week, a couple of these words are very similar, so we're not going to look very much at them. The word strife is very similar to the variance, the one that is translated as strife in the American Standard, talking about the debate and that sort of thing. One who is causing contentions or a contentious thought. Let's jump over to one contention that was had in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, and this will probably be the last thing that we look at today. So I'm going to go ahead and put my marker here. Okay, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. If somebody would read verses 10 through 17. 10 through 17.
Thank you, brothers, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you speak the same word, that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly united in the same mind and the same judgment. It has been made known to me, my brothers, by them in the family of glory, that there are quarrels among you. Saying this, that one of you is declaring, I indeed am of Paul, while another saying, I'm of Apollos. And then another says, I'm of Cephas, and another says, I'm of Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Or were you immersed in Paul's name? I'm thankful to God that I immersed none of you except Crispus and Gaius, so that none of you could say that you were immersed in my name. Also I immersed the household of Stephanus, but beyond these I do not know if I immersed anyone else. Christ did not send me to do the immersion, but to proclaim the gospel, and that not in the wisdom of speech, just because Christ became weakness.
Thank you for reading that. What's going on here? Well, what's happening? Why does Paul need to write this?
Factions were developing.
Factions were developing. Divisions were forming. The very thing that is taught not to do or not to happen in the Lord's church is happening. We can't have divisions. We have to be perfectly joined with one another in the same mind and in the same judgment. They are being divided instead of being united.
We can see that contextually in the denominational
Mm-hmm.
where there are divisions and so many different churches. If
Mm-hmm. There was one person that had asked a question, why are there so many churches, with a misunderstanding that many of them are denominations. But still, that very fact, because they divided from the Lord's church, because they didn't like what was being taught, or maybe they didn't like how the worship was conducted, or things like that. There's also been divisions over the color of the carpet, as low as that is. He tells us to be, to speak the same thing. What are we supposed to speak?
The truth.
Okay. He says that there'd be no divisions among you. How do we keep from dividing? How do we keep from having divisions?
Stay true to the word.
Stay true to the word. Okay. That we be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. Whose mind and judgment are we supposed to have? Same one that is portrayed into this very word. God's. How do we get rid of division? How do we get rid of the strife, the variance, the splits that are happening all over the place? How do we get rid of denomination or denominationalism, if that was possible at this point? Stick to the word. That's all it is. And in this context, he's saying that the people here are saying that I am of Paul, and I have Apollos, and I have Cephas, and I have Christ. Then he talks a little bit about baptism and how Paul said that I'm glad that I only baptized these few. They're talking about their mindset right now is, I am better because I was baptized by this person. I have a question. Does it matter who baptized you? No, it does not. Does it matter why you were baptized?
Yes.
Yes. Get rid of the division. Get rid of my stutter. Get rid of the division. That's all we need to do. Get rid of the strife. Thank you for your attention. Let's worship God.